First contact fallacy. The Meridian, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, drifted silently through the Carina Nebula's outer reaches. Captain Elena Santos stood at the bridge's observation window, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling colors of the nebula. The ship's quantum engines hummed at a frequency just below human hearing, but she could feel their vibration through the soles of her boots. Contact, bearing 035, announced Lieutenant Commander James Chen, his fingers dancing across the biosynth interface. Large vessel, unlike anything in our database. Elena straightened, her attention shifting from the nebula's beauty to the tactical display. The approaching ship resembled a crystalline lattice, its structure seemingly impossible by conventional engineering standards. It was beautiful, yes, but also clearly designed to intimidate. "They're scanning us," reported Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the ship's chief scientist. Her neural implants flickered with activity as she processed the incoming data. "Their technology is interesting. They're using pure energy matrices for computation, highly advanced, but extremely inefficient by our standards." The alien vessel's approach was cautious, almost condescending. Elena recognized the behavior from humanity's own history. The way technologically advanced nations had once approached what they considered primitive cultures. "They're broadcasting," Chen announced. It's basically a technological superiority display. They're showing off." Elena smiled slightly. "Let them." "Dr. Mitchell, are they detecting our true capabilities?" "No, Captain. The biomimetic hull is doing its job. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see. A relatively simple metal-hulled vessel with basic propulsion and defensive systems." The alien transmission was a complex burst of quantum-encoded data, clearly designed to overwhelm primitive communication systems. But the Meridian's neural network absorbed it effortlessly, its biological processors adapting and learning from each byte. "They're requesting a response," Chen reported. "Standard first contact protocols." Elena shook her head. "No. Let's see how they react to silence. Humanity learned long ago that sometimes the best way to understand someone is to let them fill the quiet." The alien vessel's response came quickly. A warning shot of pure energy, precisely calculated to miss their ship but demonstrates superior firepower. It was textbook intimidation tactics. The energy beam never reached its intended position. As it approached the Meridian, the ship's biomimetic hull responded automatically, its engineered bacteria colonies absorbing and processing the energy, converting it to fuel through a process humanity had learned from deep-sea thermal vent organisms. "Their confusion is palpable," Mitchell commented, amusement clear in her voice. "Their sensors are going crazy trying to figure out what happened to their shot." Elena watched as the alien vessel's crystalline structure shifted, weapons systems emerging from hidden compartments. They were beautiful weapons, works of art, really, representing what must be thousands of years of technological development. And they were completely useless against the Meridian's biological defenses. "They're charging weapons," Chen reported calmly. "Multiple systems, all energy-based." "Let them fire," Elena ordered. "Dr. Mitchell, prepare to demonstrate humanity's approach to technological advancement. It's time to show them why we chose to evolve our technology rather than simply build it." The alien vessel opened fire, its energy weapons creating a spectacular light show in the vacuum of space. The Meridian's hull drank in every joule of energy, its bacterial colonies reproducing and evolving in real time to process the new forms of energy more efficiently. Within seconds, the ship's power reserves were higher than they'd been in months. "Thank you for the recharge." Elena broadcast on all frequencies, using the alien's own communication protocols. "Now, would you like to see what humanity can do with all that energy you just gave us?" The Meridian's hull began to shift, not with the mechanical precision of the alien vessel, but with the fluid grace of a living organism. The bacterial colonies that made up its outer layer changed color and pattern, creating complex bioluminescent displays that mimicked the nebula around them. "We can continue this demonstration of force," Elena continued, or we can have a real conversation about how humanity chose to advance. You see, we didn't try to conquer the laws of physics. We learned to dance with them instead. The alien vessel's weapons powered down, and for a moment, space was silent. Then a new transmission came through, this one lacking the previous arrogance. Your approach is unexpected. We would very much like to understand. Elena smiled. First contact had gone exactly as planned. Humanity had learned long ago that the best way to advance wasn't to build bigger machines or more powerful weapons. It was to understand the fundamental patterns of life itself and learn to work with them. The aliens were about to discover that what they had dismissed as primitive was actually the next step in technological evolution, one they had missed in their race to dominate rather than adapt. Welcome to humanity's version of progress, Elena broadcast. Let's talk about why we chose to grow our technology instead of build it, and what that means for the future of both our species. The quantum dance. The crystalline conference chamber aboard the alien vessel, which they learned was called the Astral Seeker, sparkled with refracted light as Dr. Sarah Mitchell explained humanity's technological path. The aliens, who called themselves the Luminary, watched with their multifaceted eyes as she manipulated a holographic display of the Meridian's cellular structure. You see, Mitchell gestured to the shifting display. While you pursued mastery over quantum mechanics through artificial means, we discovered that nature had already solved many of these problems billions of years ago. First speaker Lyra, the Luminary's lead scientist, leaned forward, her crystalline form catching the light. But the computational requirements alone would be astronomical. How do you manage the quantum coherence in biological systems at this scale? Mitchell smiled, touching her neural implants. We don't manage it. We let it manage itself. Every cell in our ship's hull contains modified mitochondria that maintain quantum coherence through natural processes we barely understand. We didn't invent this. We found it in the chloroplasts of plants and enhanced it. Captain Elena Santos watched the exchange from her position near the chamber's entrance. The initial tension of first contact had given way to something approaching mutual fascination. Commander Chen stood beside her, monitoring the situation through his biosynth interface. "They're still scanning us," he whispered, "but the nature of their scans has changed. Less tactical, more scientific." "Let them," Elena replied. "That's why we're here." The Luminary's second speaker, a military leader named Vex, raised what approximated a hand. "But your weapons systems, our scans showed primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy shielding." Mitchell's hologram shifted to show a cross-section of the Meridian's defense systems. Those weren't weapons in the traditional sense. What you saw as kinetic weapons are actually colony deployment systems. Each bullet contains billions of specialized bacteria that can rapidly adapt to and neutralize threats. And our basic shields, living crystalline structures that evolved from deep-sea organisms, capable of absorbing and redistributing energy in ways that make traditional shields obsolete. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Luminary had spent millennia developing increasingly complex technology to bend the universe to their will. Humanity had instead chosen to understand and enhance what the universe had already perfected. But the risks, Lyra's voice carried both awe and concern. Working with living systems at this scale, the potential for mutation, for loss of control. That was our first challenge, Mitchell acknowledged. The solution came from an unexpected source: our own immune systems. Every human ship carries a biological control network modeled after our lymphatic system. It identifies and corrects dangerous mutations before they can spread. Elena stepped forward, sensing the moment was right to broaden the discussion. What Dr. Mitchell is explaining isn't just about technology. It's about perspective. Humanity learned early in our development that trying to force the universe to conform to our will was a losing battle. So we changed our approach. She gestured to the Astral Seeker's crystalline walls. "Your technology is incredible. You've mastered the manipulation of matter and energy in ways we can barely comprehend. But you're fighting against entropy with every operation, spending massive amounts of energy to maintain order. And you don't. Vex challenged, though his tone held more curiosity than hostility. We work with entropy, Elena explained. Our systems are designed to thrive on chaos, to adapt and evolve. The more complex the challenge, the stronger they become. It's why your warning shot didn't damage us. Our hull didn't just absorb that energy, it learned from it. Those cells are now better at processing that specific type of energy than they were before. Lyra's crystalline form shifted colors in what the humans had learned was an expression of deep thought. Your entire approach to technological advancement, it's elegant, beautiful, even. But surely there are limitations. Mitchell nodded. Of course. Our systems can be slower to respond initially, and they require careful nurturing. We can't simply manufacture new components. They have to be grown. But the trade-off is adaptability and efficiency that artificial systems can't match. And you're faster than light travel? Vex asked. We detected no traditional quantum drives. Ah. Mitchell's eyes lit up. That's perhaps our proudest achievement. We discovered that certain deep-sea bacteria naturally create microscopic wormholes to move nutrients across vast distances. We cultivated that ability, scaled it up, and now our ships don't so much travel through space as gently persuaded to reconnect at different points. The implications seemed to hit all the luminary at once. Their crystalline forms flickered with rapid color changes, their version of excited conversation. Humanity hadn't just developed a different kind of technology. They had fundamentally reimagined what technology could be. Elena watched with satisfaction as the barriers between their civilizations began to dissolve. The luminary were beginning to understand that humanity's primitive appearance was merely the surface of something far more sophisticated. A technology so advanced it appeared simple, working in harmony with the universe rather than trying to dominate it. Hidden strengths. The peaceful exchange of knowledge aboard the Astral Seeker shattered with a single transmission. The message came through both ships' communication systems simultaneously, its urgency cutting through protocol and ceremony. The luminary Deep Space Research Station had gone dark, but not before sending one final, terrifying data burst. Captain Elena Santos stood with first speaker Lyra and second speaker Vex, watching the holographic replay. The research station's crystalline structure crumbled not from any physical force, but from what appeared to be a fundamental breakdown of its atomic bonds. The final readings made no sense. Physics itself seemed to be unraveling in the station's vicinity. We've never seen anything like this. Vex's crystalline form had taken on a deep, troubled blue. The station's quantum field generators should have prevented any form of molecular degradation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell studied the data through her neural interface, her expression growing increasingly concerned. The problem isn't with your technology, she said finally. Your station was working perfectly, right up until the moment the laws of physics it relied on changed. The chamber fell silent. The idea of physics itself becoming mutable threatened everything both civilizations had built. The luminaries' mastery of quantum mechanics meant nothing if quantum mechanics itself could be rewritten. Their technology required absolute constants to function. How long until it reaches populated space? Elena asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. At current speeds, 72 hours, Lyra responded, her form flickering with distress patterns. We've already ordered an evacuation of the nearest systems, but our ships... She trailed off, the implications clear. If their technology couldn't function in altered physics, evacuation might be impossible. Elena exchanged a glance with Mitchell. Show them the deep-sea readings, she ordered. Mitchell nodded, bringing up new holographic displays. These are recordings from Earth's Hadal zones, the deepest parts of our oceans, she explained. Specifically from areas near hydrothermal vents, where the intense pressures and temperatures create conditions that seem to bend conventional physics. The displays showed microscopic organisms thriving in conditions that should have been impossible. They survive by constantly adapting their molecular structure to match their environment's changing demands. Life, Mitchell continued, doesn't just adapt to conditions, it adapts to the rules themselves. These organisms can survive in environments where the standard models of physics break down because they're not fighting the changes. They're flowing with them. Understanding dawned in Vex's crystalline patterns. Your ships, they're based on these organisms. Not just based on them, Alina confirmed. Our ships are living things. The Meridian doesn't maintain its structure through rigid engineering, but through constant adaptation. If the laws of physics change, it will change with them. That's why you saw us as primitive, Mitchell added. Your civilization built incredible machines to impose order on chaos. We learned to thrive within the chaos itself. Lyra moved closer to the displays, her crystalline form refracting the holographic light. Can your adaptation principles be applied to our technology? Better, Alina said. We can teach your technology to adapt itself. She turned to Commander Chen, who had been quietly monitoring ship systems. Showed them Project Genesis. Chen brought up a new display showing what appeared to be crystal growth, but with organic patterns. We've been experimenting with hybrid systems, he explained. Living crystals that combine your quantum precision with our adaptive capabilities. We couldn't match your level of technical sophistication, so we found a way to enhance it instead. How quickly can it be implemented? Vex demanded, military pragmatism overriding scientific curiosity. The basic process takes 12 hours, Mitchell answered. But we'll need your expertise to properly integrate it with your systems. This isn't about replacing your technology. It's about helping it evolve. Alina watched as the luminary leaders processed this information. Their civilization had achieved wonders through careful control and manipulation of natural laws. Now they were being asked to embrace an approach that seemed to defy everything they believed about technological progress. There's something else you need to understand, Alina added softly. This isn't just about survival. Whatever's coming isn't just changing physics. It's changing the fundamental nature of reality itself. We think it might be alive. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical force. The idea of a living entity capable of rewriting the laws of physics was beyond terrifying. But as the initial shock wore off, something else became clear. The combination of luminary precision and human adaptability might be the only hope of confronting such a threat. We have 72 hours, Alina continued. Time to see what our civilizations can really do when we work together. She turned to Mitchell. Begin the integration process. Let's show the universe what happens when you combine the best of both approaches. As the two crews began their desperate race against time, Alina couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The very qualities that had made humanity appear primitive to the luminary, their embrace of chaos, their biological approach to technology, might be what saved both their civilizations. Sometimes, the oldest solutions were the best ones, especially when facing something entirely new. Unity of opposites. The Astral Seeker's main laboratory had transformed over the past 48 hours. Crystalline surfaces now pulsed with organic patterns as luminary and human scientists worked to merge their technologies. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stood at the center of controlled chaos, her neural implants processing streams of data from dozens of experiments simultaneously. The integration is holding at the quantum level, she announced, watching as another batch of living crystals grew in the cultivation chamber. The cellular matrices are successfully bonding with your quantum lattices. First speaker Lyra moved closer to examine the results, her own crystalline form resonating slightly with the hybrid technology. Remarkable. The precision of our quantum systems remains intact, but now they can adapt to changing conditions. We never considered this approach possible. Commander Chen monitored the integration process through his biosynth interface. 23 ships have been successfully modified, he reported. The bacterial colonies are propagating through their systems exactly as designed, but we're cutting it close on time. Captain Alina Santos nodded grimly. The entity that was rewriting physics would reach the nearest populated system in less than 24 hours. They had to complete the fleet's transformation before then. "Show me the latest sensor readings," she requested. A holographic display materialized, showing the approaching anomaly. It had grown since their last observation, its area of influence now spanning several light years. Within that space, reality itself seemed to flutter and change like a half-remembered dream. "We're detecting something new," second speaker Vex announced, his military training evident in his precise analysis. "The entity appears to be learning. Each time it encounters a new form of matter or energy, it adapts its approach to unraveling it. Just like a living organism," Mitchell mused. "It's evolving its ability to rewrite physics. That's why traditional defenses won't work. It will simply learn to bypass them." Elena watched as another luminary vessel underwent transformation. The process was beautiful in its way, crystalline structures flowing like liquid metal as the bacterial colonies established themselves, creating something entirely new. Not quite living, not quite machine, but a harmony of both. "How are the crews adapting?" she asked. "Better than expected," Chen replied. "The neural interfaces we developed are helping them understand and work with the biological components. Some are even reporting enhanced sensitivity to quantum fluctuations." A sudden alert drew everyone's attention. The anomaly had accelerated, its approach now markedly faster than previous calculations suggested. "It's noticed us," Lyra said quietly. "Our attempts to counter it have drawn its attention." Elena straightened, her decision made. "Then we stop hiding. Dr. Mitchell, begin final implementation. Commander Chen, coordinate with the fleet. We're going to meet this thing head-on." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The remaining ships were transformed in rapid succession, their crews quickly adapting to the new hybrid systems. Training simulations ran continuously, teaching the combined fleet how to work with rather than against the coming changes in physics. As the final preparations were made, Elena stood with the luminary leaders on the Astral Seeker's observation deck. The view before them was simultaneously terrifying and awe-inspiring. A fleet of ships that represented the best of both civilizations, their hulls shimmering with crystalline patterns that moved like living things. "We've positioned long-range sensors throughout the projected encounter zone," Vex reported. "If the entity maintains its current course, we'll intercept it before it reaches the populated systems. And if our modifications work as designed," Mitchell added, "our ships should be able to maintain function even as local physics begin to change. The bacterial colonies are already showing signs of preemptive adaptation based on the sensor data." Elena nodded, then turned to address the gathered leaders. "What we're attempting has never been done before. We're not just combining technologies. We're combining philosophies. The luminaries' mastery of quantum mechanics with humanity's understanding of biological adaptation. Order and chaos working in harmony." Lyra's crystalline form shifted in what Elena had learned was an expression of deep emotion. "Perhaps this was inevitable," the first speaker mused. "Our civilizations developed along different paths, but both reached for the stars. Now we face something that neither of us could handle alone, but together we have a chance," Elena finished. "Because this entity, whatever it is, expects resistance. It expects systems to fight against its changes, just as your technology would have done. Instead, we're going to show it something new. Technology that can dance with chaos itself." The alert they had been waiting for flashed across all systems. The entity had entered the encounter zone. Initial readings showed physics beginning to fluctuate at the edges of their sensor range. "All ships, final positions," Elena commanded. "Begin active adaptation protocols. Remember your training. Don't fight the changes. Flow with them. Let your ships learn and evolve." As the fleet moved into formation, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. In just 72 hours, these two vastly different civilizations had accomplished something unprecedented. They had proven that true advancement didn't come from dominating nature or surrendering to it, but from finding a way to work in harmony with it. All ships report ready, Chen announced. Hybrid systems are functioning at optimal levels. The bacterial colonies are already beginning to adapt to the physics fluctuations at the edge of our range. Elena took a deep breath, knowing that everything hinged on what happened next. "Take us in," she ordered. "Let's show this entity what happens when you combine the best of both worlds." The fleet moved forward as one, their hybrid ships glowing with internal light as they prepared to face an enemy that rewrote reality itself. But they weren't flying to fight. They were flying to adapt, to learn, and perhaps to teach this entity something about the true nature of evolution. Evolution's echo. Reality itself seemed to ripple as the combined fleet approached the entity. What had appeared as a distant distortion in space now manifested as something both beautiful and terrifying. A living void that shifted between dimensions, its very presence causing the fabric of space-time to unravel and reweave itself in new patterns. Captain Elena Santos watched through the Meridian's enhanced sensors as the laws of physics began to break down around them. Light bent in impossible ways, quantum states fluctuated wildly, and the very concept of cause and effect became fluid. But their hybrid ships held together, their living crystalline wholes adapting to each change as it came. "Remarkable," Dr. Mitchell breathed, her neural implants processing the flood of data. The entity isn't just changing physics, it's experimenting. Each variation is a test, like it's trying to understand the nature of reality itself. "All ships holding formation," Commander Chen reported. "The bacterial colonies are evolving faster than we predicted, creating new quantum states to match each change in local physics." Through their shared communication network, Elena could sense the luminary crew's mix of fear and fascination. Their rigid technology would have failed instantly in this environment, but the hybrid systems were thriving, learning from each change the entity introduced. "We're being scanned," First Speaker Lyra announced from the Astral Seeker. "The entity has noticed our adaptation. It's curious." The entity's response was immediate and overwhelming. Space around the fleet twisted into configurations that should have torn their ships apart. Energy patterns that defied known physics cascaded through their shields. But instead of resisting, their ships absorbed these changes, incorporated them, learned from them. "This is our chance," Elena declared. "Dr. Mitchell, initiate the communication protocol." Mitchell nodded, activating the experimental system they had developed. Unlike traditional communication methods, this one used the hybrid technology itself as a medium. The living crystals in their ship's hulls began to pulse with bioluminescent patterns, creating quantum resonances that mimicked the entity's own reality-altering effects. "We're not here to fight you," Elena broadcast through the quantum resonance. "We want to understand." The entity's response came not in words, but in waves of altered reality, each carrying patterns of meaning that the hybrid ships translated into comprehensible data. It was ancient, they learned, a being from the very early universe, when physics itself was still settling into its final form. It had been traveling, searching for others who could perceive reality as it did, as something fluid and alive rather than fixed and mechanical. "Show it everything," Elena commanded. "Our complete database on biological adaptation and quantum mechanics. Let it see how we've learned to work with nature rather than against it." The transfer of information flowed both ways. As their ships shared humanity's journey from primitive technology to biological integration, and the luminary's mastery of quantum mechanics, the entity shared its own story. It had encountered many civilizations in its travels, but all had either fled from its approach or tried to fight against the changes it brought. None had ever adapted to work with them. The physics changes, Mitchell realized suddenly. They weren't an attack. They were an attempt at communication. It was trying to find someone who could perceive reality as it does, as something that can grow and evolve. The entity's next transmission carried a different tone, one of recognition and something approaching joy. The reality distortions around the fleet began to change, becoming more ordered, more purposeful. The entity wasn't just communicating now. It was teaching. It's showing us how to work with dimensional physics on a fundamental level, Lyra reported, her crystalline form resonating with excitement. The applications are endless. Over the next several hours, the entity shared more of its knowledge. It taught them how to guide reality's evolution rather than simply adapt to it, how to work with the underlying fabric of space-time as a living thing, rather than a fixed set of laws. The hybrid ships absorbed this knowledge, their bacterial colonies and quantum crystals growing more sophisticated with each passing moment. "We need to make a decision," Elena announced to the fleet. "The entity is offering to stay, to continue teaching us. But its presence will permanently alter the physics of this region of space. Any technology that can't adapt will cease to function." The response from both human and luminary crews was unanimous. They had glimpsed a new way of existing in the universe, one that transcended the traditional boundaries between life and machine, between order and chaos. The cost of losing their old technology seemed small compared to what they stood to gain. Second speaker Vex's voice carried a note of wonder that Elena had never heard before. "We thought we were advanced because we had mastered the laws of physics. Now we understand. True advancement comes from learning to grow with those laws, to help them evolve as we evolve." The entity's final transmission carried approval and anticipation. It would stay, anchoring itself in a remote system where its influence could expand gradually, giving other worlds time to adapt their technology or choose to remain outside its range. But for those willing to embrace this new paradigm, it offered something unprecedented: the chance to help shape the very nature of reality itself. As the fleet began their journey home, Elena stood at the Meridian's observation window, watching the entities glow on the horizon. Humanity had reached for the stars believing they were primitive compared to what they might find there. Instead, they had discovered that their greatest strength lay not in conquering the universe's challenges, but in learning to grow with them. The stars seemed different now, their light carrying new possibilities. In seeking to preserve their civilizations, humanity and the luminary had discovered something far greater, a way to participate in the universe's own evolution. They had learned that the most advanced technology wasn't about imposing order on chaos or building bigger machines, but about finding ways to dance with the very fabric of reality itself. The journey that had begun with a seemingly primitive human ship had led to something that would reshape their understanding of existence itself. And as Elena looked out at the changed stars, she knew this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. The real adventure, learning to grow alongside reality itself, was just beginning.